In this video we're going to look at some more isometric sketching, so more 3D sketching, and to help us with this lesson we're going to use a resource from the designclass.co.uk website, which is a really fantastic resource for graphics at National 5 all the way up to advanced higher level, but it also can help us teach some of the basics. And this particular file, this particular resource, is used for CAD modelling. It's for a little orange peeler, but we're going to use it to help us do some isometric sketching today. Now, to start off our isometric sketch, we're going to start by giving ourselves a nice horizontal baseline. I'm leaning quite firmly just so you can see it in the video, but obviously you'd lean much lighter to make sure it's a good construction line. And then I'm going to go vertically up. And just like in previous videos, I'm going to have to calculate roughly where my 30-degree angle would be. So by treating this like the number 12 on a clock face and that as number 3, and then treating that as number 9, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for roughly where the points 1 and 2 and 10 and 11 would be. So that would be roughly where 1 would be, that would be approximately where 2 would be. Same at the other side where I would have 11 and 10. I'm not interested in 11 and 1, it's just to help me calculate it out. But then to get my 30-degree angle, I'm sketching to roughly where 2 would be. And then I want a similar angle at the other side, going from roughly where 10 is down to the base there, and that should give us an approximate 30-degree angle each side. As with some of the other isometric sketches that we've done, we want to create a crate for our object to fit in. Now this is quite an unusually shaped object, it's mainly curved, mainly arced all the way around, so what we're going to do is going to try and create a crate for it to fit in, and then what we'll do is we'll subtract some of the shapes away from it. So the starting point would be to get my height on our vertical line, on our height line. From the little orthograph that we've got here, it says it's 10mm in height, so I'm going to use that. Obviously it's a sketch, so we're not going to measure, we're going to approximate roughly what 10mm is. Again, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to scale it up just ever so slightly. So that'll be where my 10mm mark is. And then I'm going to sketch a parallel line out to the right and out to the left so I can continue that height out to each side. And once I've got that, I have to look at my overall size of the object. So the overall size of this object requires a little bit of addition. You have to look at the different radii and you have to look at the different diameters and combine them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch with a size of about 80mm in length. So I'm just going to approximate that and give myself that mark there. And then I'm going to take that line up to the height line. Once I've got that, I'm going to go for the exact same size at the other side. Now it is quite difficult to get an exact size, but we want it to be as square as possible for this crate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look along for where that is, and actually just going to continue my hand as if I was drawing a horizontal line. You can if you want, just do it very lightly so as not to confuse yourself, and mark a point at the other side and then go vertically up again. Once we've got those lines vertically connecting to the height line, we're going to go back at 30 degrees, so parallel to this side, so almost looking at the opposite to see what direction you're going, and then go back at 30, and where these lines intersect is going to give us the top of our crate. So it's important to try and get a 30-degree line. You might want to just kind of generally practice before you do it so you've got that motion so you know what angle you're going at. Don't worry if it doesn't meet that line there, it shouldn't, it doesn't have to. But I'm just going to go over this one just to straighten out a little bit, just to get my angle a little bit better. And that is going to form the top of our crate. The reason that probably doesn't meet is it might not be quite vertical, the same way they might not be exactly 30 degrees. Now that we've got our crate, we can start looking at trying to form the main shape of this object. So I'm just going to zoom this in on the iPad here just so I can see the general sizes and shape of the object. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and draw a version of this object isometrically just on the top of my crate. I'm going to start with a circle in the top corner, and you can see that the maximum diameter here is 40 just by adding the radius 20 twice, doubling it up. So it's 30 on the inside, but it's 40 on the outside. So because my crate is about 80 in length, I'm just going to look approximately halfway down, and I'm going to look halfway along there. And then I'm going to bring these lines down to the front. So at 30 degrees, looking just to aim for the middle there. So I can work from each side to find the size. There's our 40 on that line, and just take that to meet that point. I'm going to start by working in that section first. So I'm going to draw my first isometric circle in here, and then we're going to convert that into a cylinder, and then we'll be able to get the curve of the next part to complete the object. So we're only going to be working in this little quadrant here, up in this top quarter, and just like we've done in previous videos, I'm going to try and find the centre of that little square. So as not to confuse myself, I'm just going to take out this line through the centre. I wouldn't normally erase construction lines, but in this case it will probably help us out a little bit. I'm just going to connect that back up. And my starting point is going to be to find the centre of that little quarter. So I'm going to go from left to right, and then I'm going to go vertically down. And you'll see that by rubbing out that line, it just takes out another line that might have confused things. Now that I've got the centre point of that quadrant, I'm going to go through the centre at 30 degrees and through the centre at 30 degrees in that direction as well. And that's given us some of our construction lines to start forming our isometric circle. I'm going to treat that point as 12, that one as 3, 6 and 9, and I know that my circle is definitely going to pass through those points. I'm then going to use my technique for finding another little guide point, another little construction point, and I'm going to go through the centre here just to find where halfway is on that line, and then find my 3/4 point by going from there to there and finding halfway. And that would then allow me to form a curve through that top point as best I can. And then doing the same process around the next 3 quadrants. So looking for the halfway point and then the 3/4 point there. And sketching through there. And then again just repeating the process for the last 2. Now at that point you'll see we've got an approximately elliptical shape. Just because of the sketch angle that I've chosen up here, it's not a perfect curve. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just try and fix that out a little bit just by thickening it down here and then continuing beyond the edge of that box just to get a more rounded shape. Just because it's not quite as accurate as I would have wanted, but there's no harm in that. It's easy enough to correct. Just trying to get more of an elliptical shape for us to follow. Now that we've got the outside diameter, the outside circle, what we can do is look at getting the internal diameter. I'm not going to go through the construction process again. I'm just going to look at the general shape and size of the object. You can see that the difference between the diameter there is 30 and the outside diameter, it gives it a radius, but it would be a diameter 40. So there's a 10mm difference all around, 5 at each side, and I'm just going to look to sketch following that curve on the inside to get an approximate 5mm isometric circle following round the inside. Now, even though I won't see all of this cylinder just because of the way it would be viewed, I would be able to see, for example, the inside back edge even though I'm looking down at the top, and I would see some of this outside edge down at the front. So I'm going to include these, and my starting point is to project down from the 6 and from the 3 first of all, just down vertically. Now we know the height of the object is 10mm, so we should be aiming to get the same size there as we are there. I'm then going to project down just from the last point here, the same sort of height, so they shouldn't all go down to the same point, they should all be roughly the same length. And then I'm going to project from this point here. Now it will overlap this line at the front, but again that's okay. So you should see a slight variation in height. This one should stop before it reaches this one should stop before this height, this one should be longer than that, and that should be longer than that. And once we've got our approximate sizes, we can then follow the same path here as around the bottom. Now, not all of this part will be visible, but it's important we have there to help us with construction. And the last part is then to replicate the same process but on the inside here, so working from this point and working from this point and working from this point on the inside here. Now it would overlap, so I'm not going to actually sketch on that point, but I'm just going to follow that curve approximately so it looks like I can see the inside of that cylinder. So for the next part of the video I'm going to switch to a red pencil. Now it's not something you have to do, but again it's just for clarity in this little demonstration, because a lot of the lines that we're going to draw now are going to overlap this first part of the object. I'm now going to start looking at trying to form this arc here. So it's not a complete isometric circle, but we are going to follow a lot of the same process. And we're going to start by using this size here, this outside diameter, and looking that it lines up approximately with the centre of this circle. So my starting point is actually going to be to extend this line down till it meets here. And I'm marking it in red, but obviously you just mark it in a normal pencil. And then I'm going to extend it to the right here. And what that's going to do is if I just add that line in and follow that at 30 degrees, and that one across from here, because we're only doing one quadrant, 1/4 of this circle, I'm going to treat this like it's our 1/4. So I'm going to draw a line diagonally down from the top here, which pretty much already exists, but it's just for clarity to show you. And then I'm going to divide that up to find my halfway point, and then I'm going to divide that again to find my 3/4 point. And what's going to happen is I'm going to sketch approximately through there. Now, already when I've started to curve that, I can see that I've probably not got the right angle here. I've not got exactly the right sizes. So I'm going to start that again, and I'm just going to sketch, because these two parts of the object do actually intersect and pass through one another. And then I'm going to follow the same diameter on the inside. To get my approximate curve. And again, I would follow the same process, coming down at my height, the same height as that, but obviously we're a little bit further forward, so we're going down about 10 millimeters. I'm going to go down to the same height there, and to there, and there, and there, and then I'm just going to sketch that arc around the front, aiming for that point in the centre, and then back around. So to try and get a little bit more clarity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add in the normal pencil lines just over the top of the red. You can see as well that there's a small radius in here that I haven't added. I'm just going to freehand that in just now. There's also a small radius on the end of each one of these protrusions here. So again, I'm just going to freehand them in. I'm not going to go to the extent of adding in the whole isometric circle process, because it is quite a small diameter. We can just add that in. I'm going to concentrate on filling in the top first. To get the base of the object, we have to again bring down our technique so that we're trying to mirror this curve up here down at the bottom. Bring that down and then just allow it to follow around. And bring that here, and then along around the bottom here, and I'm just going to follow that curve in just so that it extends down to meet that line there. The next part, although the most simple shape, is actually probably the most challenging. It's to get this little spiked part coming out from the centre of that object and trying to get that to come into the right position. So looking at where it's positioned, it comes out from the centre of this circle. So I'm going to be working from here, and then it's coming forward out and then goes diagonally back, not at the same angle that we are looking at. So what we're going to do is we're going to start just by finding out where that point is, and we're going to follow this arc round to the outside. And you can see that it extends most of the way along this curve, so I'm going to bring it out quite far, round to about here. And then because the line would be coming straight down from that centre, the angle we're looking at is it would actually be following straight down this path. And it extends for about 5 millimeters, so it should be about the same thickness as here. And once we've got that, we can just actually go dot to dot straight across from there till it meets that point. And then again, it's got a small thickness. We can see just from the elevation here that it's only 2 mm thick, so it should be about half of this size here. We're going to go vertically down, and then we're going to go across. And that gives us the view of this little spiked piece. That's the bit that cuts into the orange and allows it to take the peel off around the outside.